Hey, music executives, this is the Music Executive Podcast, a podcast where we dive into what it takes to thrive in the music industry. I'm your host, Sentimental, and at the time of this episode and in my part of the world, we are officially in a new year. So happy new year! I have been making this podcast now for almost 3 years, and I'm really excited about this year, mostly because of what I learned last year. I was recently talking to a friend who was having a hard time. They got into a car accident a few months ago. They're dealing with some family issues. They're not super happy with their career. And, I listened. And when they were done venting, if you will, I had a series of clarifying questions that I asked them. And once I got that clarification, they asked me so how do you manage adulting? How are you adulting? How are you doing music full time? How are you doing this? And I said, well, first and foremost, I'm figuring it out just like everybody else. Okay. But I also shared with them 2 themes that have been a big part of my life for the past 2 years. Themes meaning things that I kind of am trying to be aware of as I go through my life, my daily life. They are next best decision and salmon energy. So on today's The Music Executive episode, I do want to genuinely share these themes, these concepts, what have you, in hopes that you will feel encouraged with this new year, cautiously optimistic if that's your thing, and ready to thrive this year. All right, let's do this, music executives.
I'm feeling sentimental.
So, as I shared earlier, I was talking to a friend and they asked me, how are you thriving in the music industry? It's wild out here. And my answer was, every time I make a decision, I do everything in my power to make sure it is the next best decision. Hear me out, music executives. I know it's not a revolutionary idea, but what I noticed in my life, especially last year, was that I constantly tried to make the next best decision, even when the decision was seemingly small. For example, I started noticing that certain things that I viewed as collaborations were really just me doing a lot of free work with no return on my investment. It was a tough pill to swallow because this was not a case where I was oblivious to it. I just made the decision to participate in these collaborations without really vetting if the collaboration will ever yield an ROI on my time, right? And not just of my time, but the time I also took away from other things. So there were moments where the collaborations were just not worth it. And the same really could have went for gigs. I started realizing that, hey, this will get you great exposure, which is a line from promoters that actually is a red flag, not a green one. Because now I'm essentially losing money in ways that I didn't necessarily plan for, and I'm literally recovering from a gig. And really, mind you, hey, you'll get this great exposure. That ended up being an entire episode in and of itself. That episode is going to be released next week. It's called, Is It Exposure or Exploitation? And in that episode, I talk about how to identify if a gig is really exposure or exploitation. And I'm really excited about that episode because I truly do not want you, music executives, to waste time in the ways that I have. Nonetheless, I had to be honest with myself at the end of 2022 / the beginning of 2023. I asked myself, have I been making the next best decision? And I recognized that up until that point, the end of 2022, the beginning of 2023, I had not been making the next best decision. So last year, 2023, I made a commitment to myself to literally make better decisions. Brilliant, right? Okay, actually, yes. Because last year I started Sentimental Productions. I got 2 sync placements. Woohoo, literally my first sync placements. I produced nearly 100 podcast episodes throughout my career. My friend and owner of Dank Studios, Gemini, won a theme song contest for the wildly fun podcast Bops and Bangers. I got referrals. I got 3 new clients. I found my abs in the gym. And if you know, you know, I was more consistent with my self-care. I prioritized myself. I was legitimately happier last year. However, my happiness was more of an epiphany at the end of the year than it was throughout the year. I just kept doing the next best thing. I kept making the next best decision. No, I'm not going to commit to this because it will keep me from updating my website. Yes, I will go to the gym, even though I don't want to, because I know it's helping with my stress management. And I looked back on my 2023 and I could literally and figuratively see progress. A lot of the progress I really didn't notice until I reflected on the year as a whole. So I got excited about 2024. And because I was oh yeah, We're going to keep making the next best decision in 2023. When I reflected on 2023, y'all, I was so proud of myself. Now, I know this is a music-centered podcast, but in order to thrive in this industry, I learned that I have to be a whole being, a filled being. I have to be happy to thrive, and progress makes me happy. All right, so the second theme of 2023 was salmon energy. Let me explain. I won't say that the salmon is my spirit animal or anything of that nature, but listen, nature tells us all we need to know more often than not. Salmon is one of my favorite fish, and it is a really incredible fish because it is one of the few fish in the world that are anadromous fish. And what this indicates, or what anadromous fish means, is that salmon is a fish that thrives in both fresh water and salt water. And it also means that they swim upstream to get to fresh water to spawn or to reproduce. And they exert an insane amount of energy to ensure that they spawn. They take incredible risk doing so. So if you've ever seen the nature documentaries where the salmon are literally jumping out of the water and there's a bear waiting right there for them, you know what I'm saying? It's like it's an impossible mission for salmon to spawn. But they do it anyway, and they do it instinctually. So I have recently been saying to myself, Cinnamon, salmon energy. Because sometimes you got to swim upstream to get to where you want and need to be, where you instinctually want to be, where you intuitively want to be. And it's going to take an enormous amount of energy, tenacity, relentlessness, courage. But last year, I said to myself, I'm going to do the opposite of what I have been doing. I'm going to swim upstream. And what that really led me to was a year that I personally felt proud of. And I didn't want or need to hear anyone else's thoughts because I was like, yeah, I did that. And that was because of that salmon energy. I did something drastically different and got drastically different results. I stopped saying yes when I should have said no. I stopped saying yes so quickly because sometimes that pause between someone asking you something and you taking time for yourself to decide eliminates that person's need for you or gives you the time to get the clarity that you need to make the next best decision. All this to say what? Music executives, you can do this. One decision at a time, one day at a time. Pick a struggle, there are plenty, and only pick up one struggle at a time. I can't say that I always have these pep talks in all of my episodes, but y'all seem to really love them because these are the ones that do well. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I make this podcast because I want you music executives to succeed, and I'm rooting for you. If you're enjoying the Music Executive Podcast, give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to your podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show so that you get notified when episodes go live. Let's have a great year, music executives. If you haven't listened to it yet, what you're about to listen to is one of my newer singles, and it's called Be Like You. It is a Sentimental production. It is sung by Sentimental, that is me, and it was mixed and mastered by the incredible Jam Phelps over at Dank Studios. Music executives, see you next time.
Look at you, you get everything your way. And I would probably bet that you're the one driving slow in the fast lane. I bet someone like you can get the clearest sky to rain, and even get the most stubborn dog to sit and stay. Show me how you do that, so cool, so smooth, so cool, so smooth. I must admit that I just wanna be like you. Shame the devil, tell the truth. I just wanna be like you. Baby, I'm not gonna hold you. I just wanna be like you. I just wanna be like you. I've been going to therapy for 3 years, and I haven't learned a thing. Just that the problem isn't me, it's really the healthcare system. I'm not here for the politics, but you got me feeling sentimental, and it's probably because I know someone like you can get a Gator fan, never a hurricane. Even get a Yankee fan to cheer for the Braves. Look at you, so cool, so smooth, so cool, so smooth. I must admit that I just wanna be like you. Shame the devil, tell the truth. I just wanna be like you. I just wanna be. Baby, I'm not gonna hold you. I just wanna be like you. I just wanna be like you. I just wanna be like you. Shame the devil, tell the truth. I just wanna be like you. Shame the devil, tell the truth. Baby, I'm not gonna hold you. I just wanna be like you. I just wanna be like you.
I'm feeling sentimental.